Good evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi. Hi, Michael.
Hi, everyone.
I was just saying we need two more committee members to join us we need one more member to join us to have quorum because Daniel just logged in. Hi, Daniel.
What's up? How's everyone?
Good. I believe we've just made quorum. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, how are you?
Good. So it is 7:03. And I'm going to call the meeting to order now that we have quorum. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Wayne Benjamin. I chair Land Use for Manhattan Community Board 12. I want to welcome everyone back after summer break. And before I have my committee members introduce themselves, I would like to welcome our brand new Land Use Committee member, which is Kimberly McCoy. So Kimberly, why don't you say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, hello, everyone. I have lived in this community off and on for over 25 years. And I used to teach in this community. I'm a teacher and an attorney. And
Your audio's breaking up a bit.
Sorry, it's been unstable of late, but I was just saying I'm very entrenched with this neighborhood and I love it up over here. And thank you.
So thank you so much and welcome aboard. So going from my upper left, Vivian. And Vivian, you're muted.
Sorry. I'm Vivian Ducat. I live in the 150s. I've been on this, I'm the public member. I've been on this committee for about 15 years. And hi.
Okay. Tanya.
Hi, I'm Tanya Bonner. I've been member of the Land Use Committee. And I've been on the board for about 4.5 years.
Thanks, Tanya. Daniel. Daniel, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get on the window. My name is Daniel Bonilla. I'm an artist. I live in the Washington Heights Inwood area, closer to Dykeman. I've been on the committee for about 1.5 years, probably 2 years, and I just got into land use past season, and I'm on parks. Yeah.
Great. So welcome. We have a somewhat, short agenda for tonight. Let me point out that a few months ago, actually, before I do that, we have and will be hearing briefly from Michael Nicholas, who is with the Borough President's Office, and he's going to be the land use liaison between CB12 and the Manhattan Borough President's Office. We have Olivia Olmos from the Department of City Planning, who we've met before and who was kind enough to work with us in July for that land use and zoning training session. And we also have Jose, who was just there but then moved, Jose Trujillos, also with City Planning. And as I mentioned in an email to my committee members, Olivia has limited speak capacity because she just had surgery, but Jose is with us from the Department of City Planning. I was saying that a few months ago, we talked about City Planning's equitable development tool. So in October, the team who are the subject matter experts on that from City Planning will be presenting to land use in more detail. So we had an overview of that a few months ago from Olivia, but the team that has more detail will be meeting with us next month to go over that. Anything else you want to say about that, Jose?
Yeah, I mean, hi everyone, and it's really great to see you guys being in the community board for such a long time. It's Chore's core members and people that really care about the community. I am working in community board 10 and 11, so I saw Jessica Elliott. I see her community board 11 as well. And being a DCP for almost 3 years, and with Annie's departure, we are currently spread very thin in the 4 community boards in Upper Manhattan, and trying to accommodate and still respond to all concerns, comments, questions for community boards and members of the public. For the presentation in October, it will be good to get a list of questions that the community board would like to hear. Since you already heard an overview, I believe there probably are specifics that you want to ask the team members that we can share with them in advance. So if there are particular geography or something that we would like to focus on the presentation, this will help us prepare and also see who the best point person to come attend the meeting will be.
Yeah, I will say that, and other committee members, can please chime in. We sort of got a rather, brief overview of, the tools. So the expectation was that at the presentation this fall, we just get, more details. So I don't know if I necessarily have at this juncture, questions for the team about the tool. What we want to do is learn more about the tool, what it's supposed to do, how is it supposed to be beneficial, how does it, make things more equitable. So we're really interested in hearing more about, what it is and, how it is supposed to help level the playing field in the planning arena.
Right. Okay, that's great to hear, because then we can ask for an in-depth overview to the people who are overseeing that work. And I will also say, given that such a great success of the development of the application had, a lot of the members who work on developing this application have transitioned from DCP to either the Housing and Preservation Development Department, because they were the ones who were leading this, or to other agencies. And we have the limited capacity on who we can bring on board. But we'll do our best to make sure that this is, helpful for the community board, and also to me, and I believe Olivia. I mean, I am not an expert at using the tool yet, and we are receiving applications that require the racial equity report or require, the use of the tool. So it would be also good for all of us to get a more, to get just in general more information. So I'll work on that.
Good. And I also mentioned that we have Michael Nicholas from the Manhattan Borough President's Office. So Michael, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet everyone. My name is Michael Nicholas. I'm the land use planner at the Manhattan Borough President's Office, currently covering community boards 9 through 12. So if there's any issues that you need to get in contact with the Borough President's Office about for land use, I'm going to be the primary point of contact for that. So feel free to reach out to me in the future.
Okay, that's first of all, welcome. And I know you're here only briefly for an intro, but have you had the opportunity to look at any of the materials that have been generated by CB12 in the past, resolutions about, rezoning or contextual zoning, or comments, on, 421A, which was a hot topic a few months ago that still needs attention. Or for that matter, there was a district-wide land use and neighborhood planning study that we worked on back in like 2007 that is still posted to the website. That's, very detailed.
Yeah, so we're currently reviewing all of that stuff again, especially now we're still in a new administration, so catching up on everything to an extent. But yes, I'm looking forward to working with you all in the future on all those issues. So this is the beginning of a relationship.
Great, great. And, there are a range of documents, a range of resolutions that the community board has passed over the years relative to land use and planning. And if you need copies of anything, just, let me know.
I'll send you an email. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome. You're quite welcome. And I just also want to point out, in July, we had, once again, thank you, City Planning, a land use zoning 101 training session that was intended for, not just the committee, but for all board members as well as members of the public. I recently circulated the presentation that was used to the committee members. It is not yet posted to our website. The presentations that were given to the committee when Gail Brewer was borough president, that is posted, and we are working on having the July presentation, which is a little more updated, posted as well. We had a good representation of board members. Sad to say, we did not have that much of a showing from members of the public. And one of the intent and benefits was in fact to have this in July when we were not competing with any standing committee meetings, so that members of the public who are not on the board, not on the committee, would have an opportunity to get this training. But since it is in fact going to be posted to the website, and the recording or a link to the recording will also be posted, that information will be accessible to them. And for Michael and Kimberly, you're new, and Jose, there's been over the years, and I do mean years, a lot of discussion about contextual zoning and what contextual zoning means, and what areas need historic preservation or designation for protection, where you could possibly increase density so that community needs for affordable housing and things like that, where that could occur. So there's a lot of discussion, and sometimes we get comments that the language that's used, the FARs and what do these things mean. So the whole intent of that training was to provide some, background on what the terms mean, give people an understanding of that, and have the presentation available as a resource so they can always go back to that and see, okay, this is what they're talking about when they're talking about contextual zoning or density, or why height and density are not the same thing. So that's something that we continue to work on. We want to make sure that not just the committee, but the board and the community as a whole are up to speed, so that as projects come before us, but also as we are formulating strategies that we want to present to city planning or to HPD or to the mayor's office relative to neighborhood planning issues, we all kind of understand the language that planners speak, so we can speak to them in their language and understand what they're saying as well. And that's a good segue to our guest, Jessica Elliott. And I believe Jessica is the vice chair of Community Board 11.
That's correct. Yep.
And actually, I was just checking. I used to be a member of the Urban Land Institute, but I think my membership lapsed in 2009, and I haven't renewed it yet. But Jessica contacted the office, and the office got me in touch with her. So Jessica is going to share, with the committee, and I want to make sure that then the board shares broadly a sort of an urban planning workshop that the Urban Land Institute has scheduled for later this month. So Jessica, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Wayne, and thank you all so much for having me and for your service as community board members. I know what that commitment is like. So my name is Jessica Elliott. I serve as the Vice Chair of Manhattan Community Board 11. I also serve as the co-chair for ULI Urban Plan in New York. So the reason why I'm here today is to invite you all to a workshop as a follow-up to all the workshops that have been going on to sort of build community board members' knowledge base and these sort of city planning processes. ULI is the urban plan program is generally a high school and college level course that we typically run in the fall and spring semesters for many, many years now. So that is usually supported by ULI volunteers, so members of ULI who serve in different roles and have different expertise in different professions surrounding planning and land use and the built environment in general will serve as volunteers to these sort of courses to encourage students to get interested in the built environment profession and to be aware of things that are going on in the neighborhood and how to get involved. So ULI, in addition to these college and high school level courses, also runs a urban plan for public officials workshop. So this one is targeted at elected officials, community board members, people like yourselves. It's a single day experience of what is usually many weeks in a high school or college classroom. So thankfully, because I'm on the committee and I get to help make these decisions, we've decided to do a partnership with community boards 8 through 12. So we've invited all of the community board members with a focus on the land use committee members to be a participant in this workshop for free as a thank you for your service as a community board member. So the workshop, and I'm just going to share my screen if that's okay.
Sure.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll post this link into the chat, but this is the link that I circulated previously, Wayne, to you and your team, and just gives a little bit of background on the workshop itself. So right now, it's scheduled for Friday, September 30th, from 8:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Lunch will be provided, refreshments will be provided, and the location is TBD because our hope was that we could find a location within one of our community board districts so that we don't have to travel downtown or anywhere else for that matter to be able to do something focused for our communities. So,
and I believe our board chair said he's working on identifying a location.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. I think we've reached out to all of our normal full board and larger committee meeting spaces in Community District 11, and some places are, still not ready to have people, and some are already booked for this date. So, so once we get that location confirmed, and hopefully with your help, we will, make that information available. But essentially, this is a team-based exercise. So it's, like I said, a one-day version of the coursework for high school and college level courses. So basically, there's a fictional community and a city that is in charge of this fictional community, and the plan is to redevelop the community. And so there's an RFP that's released that I'm sure you all have a lot of experience on through this committee. But as teams of 5, every community board member participating in this workshop will assume a role. So there's typically a site planner role, a financial analyst role, a community liaison role, and we've introduced a sustainability and equity role so that these topics can play a deeper role in the larger objectives in the plan here. So like community board meetings, you get letters from the community, and people with varying amounts of power have often conflicting desires about what the community will look like. So you have to, as a team, navigate these inputs, provide a rate of return for the developer and the city in terms of its tax benefits, and design the best possible neighborhood that you can for our fictional town. So it's a great exercise. We ask that people reserve their spots by September 9th, which is this Friday. And that's, if there's more people who would like to sign up after that, I'm sure we can make that work. We're trying to keep the workshop limited to about 35 people, but we do ask that all participants attend for the entire workshop, because the workshop is highly team-based. So if someone has to leave halfway through, that might, prevent their team from getting the full experience. So Quincy Jones is our workshop instructor, and I will go ahead and post this link into the chat so you can learn more. There's a video here and RSVP here. Let me know if you have any questions.
So you're limiting, or you want to limit the attendees to, I think you said about, 30 or 35. How many from each community board are you seeking?
We're not really limiting it in that way. So I think ideally we'd like to get a mix of all the community boards. But I think, our biggest concern, we've had a lot of trouble running these workshops virtually over the pandemic. And, want to make sure that we have the most amount of participants that who can be there for the full time. So it doesn't matter necessarily which specific community boards they come from.
Okay. And it occurred to me that while I mentioned that your role with the Urban Land Institute, and I used to have a membership, I didn't share with my committee members what the Urban Land Institute is. So maybe you could do that. Yeah. So the Urban Land Institute has a variety of programs, and I'm more involved with this one specifically, but the New York committees in general focus on women in the built environment professions, youth involvement in the built environment professions. They give awards to developers based on and other architects and all sorts of things to promote better design. There's, annual meetings and things that it's just generally a networking and, a resource to a number of different cities where ULI is located nationally to pull events like this and involve membership in an engaging way. Right. If I'm not mistaken, ULI is the largest nonprofit in the nation focused on planning and real estate. That would not surprise me, but I couldn't say whether it is or not. Do we have any questions from the committee for Jessica? I'll stop sharing my screen.
Just for Wayne, can you, I guess, forward us the flyer in the link to RSVP, because we do not have chat.
Yeah, I will forward that email. Daniel, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it's just a quick question. Who is this geared towards, and like what kind of after this information, what can you do with it? Because you did say it's like a high school and a college course or something like that. Like, what can I do with this information in the future?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a lot of things to be gained from a workshop like this, teaching people, especially community board members who have to make decisions about land use processes and instilling, like Wayne mentioned, the language of, how much FAR you have is baked into, how that plays out in affordability metrics. So you learn yourself actually in providing goals as a team for what you're looking to see in your community, in the fictional community. You can, sort of analyze what the impacts are when you put 15% of affordable housing instead of 10, or 50 instead of 15. And if, there are a lot of other things that come into play, like there's considerations of homeless shelter and, what do the streets look and feel like? The juxtapositions of like low rise existing community fabric against this new development, where in some cases there's opportunity to do high rise buildings, and what is the sort of reception of the community for all of these factors. So it's really, teaching how to collaborate on a team with this sort of context to, help us make better land use decisions and understand the intricacies of these processes as we perform our jobs as community board members.
Nice, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hi, I once actually went to, am I interrupting you, Daniel? Sorry. No. I went to a ULI conference once when I was in this program at Real Estate Development Columbia, and I actually really liked it because of sort of the intellectual side of all of this development, whatever issues. I never thought there was that much to say. What I don't remember is how they get their funding.
I'm not an expert on the funding side. I just serve as a volunteer for this specific committee, but I do know that it is a membership fee-based organization. So, and people can provide sponsorships and, purchase advertising and become involved in other ways to support the institution monetarily. But mostly it's a fee-based membership.
Yeah, there are membership dues. I remember that.
Yeah.
So they're not looking, they're not being funded by developers or some end of things like that. That's what I really.
No, it's a nonprofit.
Right.
Yeah. And just as a clarification, I think the best thing about Urban Plan, especially for this is how I got involved in ULI in the first place. I wasn't able to pay the fees to become a member, and you are allowed to become trained as an Urban Plan volunteer as a professional without being a ULI member. So it's nice to have more support from the wider industry when it comes to this this specific initiative.
Okay, I also see a hand up from Dave Tom. Dave, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello, Jessica. My name is Dave Tom. I live in Community Board 12. Many years ago, I used to be a frequent facilitator and panelist for Urban Plan. So I was curious when I saw it appear on the agenda tonight. I always volunteered in Manhattan high schools and Brooklyn high schools. So with my question for you is, without giving away the plot, no spoilers, but I'm just curious, what is the public official version of it vis-a-vis the version I'm familiar with from high school?
It's literally exactly the same. I think one thing to mention is that we have had an update to our curriculum. It's generally the same, but I think it was becoming a little dated without as much considerations towards things that are really important to land development now, which are sustainability and equity. So those two elements have been integrated into the curriculum, and there's been sort of a new release and some like 3D mapping and things like that. But essentially it is the exact same course as the high school and college level classes. It's just, instead of being, like I said, multiple weeks long, it is just in one single day.
Thanks. Good luck with the workshop.
Thank you. And I'll have to reach out to you and get you looped back in as a volunteer.
Yeah, I have been meaning to get back into it. It's a very enjoyable experience. I highly recommend it for everyone. I do think one day it would be fun to create a theoretical Upper Manhattan version of Urban Plan that adapts all the letters and community groups for what we actually run into around here. It's a little bit different, but definitely an enjoyable experience.
And that's a great point, David. And I was thinking about that when Daniel asked his question, because in many instances, whether it's the committee or community members, we are reacting to a proposal that someone else put together. But I've done this in real life, or my day job, as I used to say, understanding what it takes to go from nothing to a particular building or urban development proposal. And as Jessica said, how that changes if you do 10% of something versus 15% of something. I remember some of the conversations that were going on when the 125th Street rezoning was going on. It's like, well, what can you ask for if you allow building heights of X as opposed to building heights of Y? So being put in the position where you are responding to this, RFP for a fictional community, it then, causes you to have to think about all of that. And what we were saying a few months ago, where it was important for not just the board, but community residents to be more proactive as opposed to reactive. So it gets the creative juices flowing when we say, well, if we want X, what does that mean in terms of, density or affordability? Because as one of my colleagues who lives in Inwood and used to be on CB12 decades ago, and he's both a licensed architect and an attorney, he says, well, you can't wave a magic wand and say affordable housing and it appears. So what's the acquisition cost? What's the development cost? So I think this will be a great way to get people to, in a very, very condensed way, because it's only one day, have to deal with all of that. And then after that one day, there's nothing that prevents us from continuing to, on our own, look at these issues, either in committee or, maybe inviting ULI to work with us to do something a little more CB12 focused.
Yep. And as an aside, quickly, that we do this every fall and spring. So if there was more interest than we were able to provide for this go around, we'd be happy to revisit that for a future session.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Do we have any, and I have the email and I will forward it to the land use committee members, and I encourage the committee members who can participate, who can devote, from 8:30 to 8:30 to 4 to do that. I will also make sure that the office shares it with the community board, a little more fully, because there might be members of Housing and Human Services, for example, who would be, interested, or Health and Environment, if you're talking about sustainability. And I will point that out, but we can't, we're not going to dominate it, but the extent to which there is interest beyond land use and beyond interest, the extent to which there are people who can devote the day, to it, that would be important. Any other questions or comments for Jessica?
No, I just think it's just great. I didn't know anything about it, and this sounds really a great opportunity to really learn in a way that the interactive way, and role playing is a great way to really dive in and get the nuance of things. So thank you, for sharing this and inviting us to participate, and I hope people do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just one more point, I think the district manager of Community Board 8 had also participated in our most recent version. So it's also open to Community Board staff if there's interest in that as well.
I will mention that. Jessica, thank you for your, for joining us. We don't have any of our late attendees. Is there any old business? But I do have a matter of old business, which, I bring up periodically. And that is, we need to, in terms of internal operations, work on how we're going to handle minutes. Because we need to make sure that minutes and resolutions get to the board office in a timely manner, so that typically when they are distributing them the Friday before the general meeting, they've gotten the final versions, of that. And, for years I did, sort of ran the meetings and took the minutes and drafted the resolutions. And then I, stopped doing that. We had various assistant chairs who did a yo person's job, with the minutes, but, I kind of stepped back into doing the minutes in the last couple of months because of schedule conflicts of other members. But moving forward, I can't necessarily say that I can, continue to do that. So committee members, including new committee members, looking for, volunteers to be able to, take notes, take the minutes, and, circulate them to the committee, let's say, a week or so after the land use meeting. Although in some cases, I remember when Andrea was our assistant chair, she'd get into us the next day, but that's because she was a superhuman person. So that we can review them, put in any comments, make sure it represents what the committee want the minutes to say, and then get them to the board. And I say what it represents what the committee want the minutes to say, because in general meetings in the past year or two, there've been lots of committees that had excessive drama where there are folks claiming that, the minutes don't represent what they discussed. And that's because, they were not having that internal review of their minutes before they were sent to the general, to the office to go to the general board. And that is something that's essential. The minutes are the minutes of the committee. It's not the minutes of the board, the committee chair, any one person. So, Vivian and Tanya and Daniel and Kimberly, I need you to think about that, because it's something, critical to committee operations. Is there any other old business? Is there
Just
any,
still waiting on that hearing.
which is not being scheduled by land use? Because if it was, it would have been done months ago.
And I understand.
Is there any
Still
new
would be.
business? Hearing none. As I said, we had a short agenda, and if there is no old or new business, then for the month of September, we are through.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
As far as land use, what is considered like new business? Like, what am I looking for to bring to the table?
That's a good question. Years ago, one of our committee members, O.C. Kaminer, who was still on the board, but she was on land use time, brought to our attention a certain work that was being done around planning as it pertains to, sunlight, and, how, solar, or protecting sort of, access to solar, becomes part of planning consideration. And that rolled into the community board passing a resolution, city planning, talking about, currently we don't have any zoning that, looks at, protecting sunlight, particularly if you're going to use sunlight for, solar panels on the roof. I know in California, there are, zoning regulations that, look at that. It could be a particular location that you know of, and, you want to know what's happening with that. I mean, there's a site on like 163rd and St. Nick that used to be a Rite Aid that Steve Simon pointed out that, the building was torn down, nothing is happening with it. It's owned by, Cassavetes, who was running for mayor at the time. Could we potentially engage him to talk about options for redeveloping that site? There's such a need for affordable housing. There have been instances where community members have said that, there's XYZ city-owned vacant building. It's been vacant, forever. Can the community board do something to encourage HPD or the city to put it in some kind of a development, plan? There might be buildings that you want to know, is this building something that could be considered for historic designation? There are lots of individuals who, have an interest in a particular part of the community or particular building, And, bringing that to the community boards or to land use committees attention is a way of perhaps starting a conversation. So it's kind of, if you think about land use as dealing with, the built environment and, development, so the question is, what is either of interest or of concern to you, or what have people brought to your attention? Then they said, what can the community board do about, XYZ?
Like that building on Fairview and Broadway that's yet to be finished.
Yeah. But also remember, in some things, would fall under the purview of land use if we're talking about, zoning implications or planning. And if it's just an incomplete building and we want to know what's happening, we could still discuss it. But things like that, we would probably then refer it to the district manager and say, we need the district manager to do some research with the building department, whomever, to find out what's the status of, X, Y, or Z. Steve Simon on a couple of occasions has asked, could we invite certain, developers who are proposing projects to come and present, to us. And as we've discussed, if you're doing an as of right development, there is no requirement for you to go before the community board because there's no city discretionary action that's being requested. But some developers, and one example is Holy Trinity Church, will want to engage the community and community board to talk about, plans for, whatever is going on. Conversely, you could have a nonprofit or a church that owns a property and, you're saying they're not doing anything with it. And maybe we can engage them in a conversation to, sort of brainstorm with them what they might be able to do with it. So it's beneficial, not just to them, but to the community, because it might be, need for daycare space, or there might be a need for, housing. So it's sort of, what's in your sphere of influence? What do you come across every day that pertain to, sort of planning, zoning type stuff that we might be able to have some conversations about?
Cool. Sounds very interesting because, like, I know for other meetings, I know more or less like what new business sound like, but land use is like something new to me. So I want to be able to like look for things and say, hey, like XYZ,
Okay, sounds good. I mean, in terms of new business, if we are talking about a particular, church or library or apartment building that's being considered for designation as an individual landmark, or an area that's being considered as to be designated as a historic district, if you know of a similar building or a building with interesting history, and that's the other part, there's so much history in Upper Manhattan that we don't always know about. We were talking a year or so ago about the building not far from where I live that, was built by an abolitionist, was then occupied by an abolitionist, and may have been part of the Underground Railroad. That came to us because members of the community, as kind of new business, say, this building's in danger of being torn down. And did you know this about the building?
Cool. That sounds so interesting right there.
So, things like that. When I say it's new business, it's not on the agenda, but it's like, can we raise it as something to talk about at a future meeting? Or, someone might have, had a connection with the Urban Land Institute or the Municipal Art Society or some other, nonprofit that is involved in architecture planning development, say, well, can we invite them to do a presentation, before CB12, so we get a better sense of what they do? And is there some way for us to partner with them on, planning or something in particular?
Nice. That's pretty cool. I really appreciate all that information. I'm definitely keep it in mind when going about my days and
Sounds good. Anything else? Vivian, Tanya, Kimberly, can't be quiet. I also see Mansita. Mansita, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for including me. I'm a new member to CB12 and I just wanted to sit in. I'm looking forward to hearing about, I guess, that proposed shelter that might be coming up. I'm hoping you guys talk about that.
Yeah,
'Cause
I think the shelter is going to be discussed by Housing and Human Services, not by Land Use.
Oh, really? Even though the history behind where the shelter is supposed to be set up? That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, what happens at times is there are topics that go to multiple communities, but since the nature of the project is, the shelter, that type of facility would fall under, the purview of Housing and Human Services. It'll be under the Human Services side of things.
Okay, I see. I was hoping the history of the African burial ground was going to be addressed more, but I think I kind of learned about it a little too late.
Yeah. Well, no, but actually, as part of the Inwood rezoning, and I believe the commitments, the city commitments for the Inwood rezoning, as well as the 12-page resolution that the community board passed regarding that, one of the things mentioned in our resolution, is in fact the history of that burial ground, and what the city needs to do to in some way acknowledge and recognize that. And I believe there was also another site that was sacred or important to the Lenape.
Right.
So these are conversations that have been going on in the community for some time. I said that's a perfect example of their rezoning was a land use matter, but we got lots of input from other committees.
Cool. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. And I will check out housing to see what they have to say as well. But thank you for having this meeting. And yeah, I'm excited.
And you're welcome to to stop in anytime. And if you want to take minutes, you're welcome to be a committee member.
We'll talk in person.
Okay, sounds good to me, because we can start meeting in person again.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
So if there is nothing further, a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It is 7:49. I think this is the shortest land use meeting we've ever had. But October's coming.
That's a threat.
No, it's not. I mean, it's just that, we're going to have the city planning presentation, and we're probably going to have to start talking about capital and expense priorities. So, it's, this is just back from vacation, but October is back to work. Take care, all.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.